Hey guys, it's Greg with JHDrums.com bringing you another drum mixing tutorial. In today's video, we're going to continue with our snare processing, and today we're going to add a gate. Let's take a listen to the snare as is. I've selected this portion here, and pay attention to all the things that the snare top and snare bottom have captured. Again, I've soloed just the snare bus, so listen for any type of bleed that we get in just those two microphones. Okay, so you could tell just by listening to that we have, of course, hi-hats, crashes all of our cymbals, kick drum. We have toms in there. I mean, everything is, of course, the focus of those two microphones is the snare, but there are instruments bleeding into those microphones that don't need to be there. And that's where our noise gate comes into play. We want to make use of a noise gate to reduce the bleed and to highlight the snare that's coming through the microphones. So in order to do that, we go to our insert channel on our snare bus. We're going to go to Dynamics, Noise Gate, and Mono. And what I like to do is just grab a preset. In Logic, there's a preset under Noise Gate that's called Percussion Gate. And notice it brings our threshold up to minus 12 dB, gives us an attack of 1 millisecond, a hold of 150 milliseconds, and a release of 26 milliseconds. Let's listen to what that does. Not ideal. Of course, our threshold we're going to need to adjust because we want it to grab the peaks of the snare transients, and in this case, minus 12 dB is too high, so it's not grabbing all the peaks that we want. Plus, you can notice, I mean, the hold and the release is just, they're way too short. It's basically releasing way too fast, and it's not holding on to the snare sound, the tail of the snare, as long as it should be. So within our parameters, our attack, our hold and release are going to be similar to our compression parameters. We want to make sure that, now remember the attack on the snare compression was around 4 milliseconds, which is fine. So we'll leave that at 4. Our release on our snare compression was around 200 milliseconds. That's what we want to match with our hold for a noise gate plugin, because that's how long the hold is going to last, basically how long the noise gate is enabled. And then our release, we want to use our ears to adjust. Now we know it was too fast just by that initial preview. But what I like to do to start off with is just bring it right up to the center. And the next step will be adjusting our threshold to where we're getting pretty much, I mean, the majority of all of our hits, and find the optimal level for our threshold to be set at so that our snare is in there, but it's not allowing the kick drum hits, the tom hits, anything like that to engage the noise gate. So let's preview that and adjust our threshold. So even in the 30 range, of course, we're a little low. All right, so around minus 21 dB. Now that's just for this particular take. Of course, your source is going to be at a different volume, so this is just an arbitrary setting for this particular drum performance. Yours will be different, but make sure that you are capturing the snare hits and that nothing's being, overlooked. But do notice here, this is important, this is the reduction. And right now, just like a typical noise gate, if it's not meeting our threshold, it's completely, zeroing out anything else that's in there after it's past our hold and release timing. So Being that the snare is a dynamic instrument, it has several nuances, subtleties that are, the body of the snare, or maybe ghost notes, rolls, things like that. We want to keep the reduction conservative so that it doesn't remove those entirely and that it sounds more natural to the ear. So let's play around with the reduction level and get it to where it needs to be as well. And notice, even at minus 30 dB, it sounds like, I'm completely getting rid of the signal after the noise gate has been activated. But really taming down the bleed in the snare drum. Check this out. We'll bypass it and play it, and then I'll engage it. Crashes, cymbals. And then engaged. So much, much better. It's going to provide a lot more headroom. It's going to get rid of all those instruments that we don't need in our snare close mics. We just want the snare. We may want to adjust our release to better capture the tail end of our snare, so we can look at that as well. Let's play around with that parameter using our ears. Don't mind the numbers. Just bring it up and down, listen to what it sounds the best to you, and then leave it at the setting that you prefer. And I typically find around 300 milliseconds on the release is going to be good. So that'll be fine. Let's preview another part here. This section in the beginning is just hi-hat and snare. So let's listen to it bypassed. Hear all that hi-hat. Now listen to it. That's what we're going to get rid of. Let's listen to it engaged. The noise gate, that is. Now the bleed's in there, but it's decreased by 24 decibels. So that's where you want to fine tune your reduction. I'm doing this quickly, so it's not going to be exactly where I might want it. And of course, it's going to evolve over the entire mix, but make sure that it is reducing those bleeds, that your attack, your hold and release are set to a natural setting, and improve the headroom and the focus of your snare with a noise gate. It makes such a huge difference. I promise you, you implement this and you're going to find that your snare and your entire drum mix is just going to stand out so much better. Whether you're mixing just drums and applying them to a cover, or if you're mixing the entire song, noise gates are going to be your friend. One problem that you might run into when applying a noise gate, like this particular section here, if we zoom in, you'll notice that sometimes we have transients that are too soft to engage our noise gate, meaning that the transients of these hits don't match our threshold setting throughout the rest of our track. So there's really two things you can do, and that's through automation. You can either automate the plugin to adjust the threshold, or you can automate it to where the plugin is completely bypassed. Now we do this in Logic through the Arrange window. Again, I've created an arranged track by going, if we go back to our mixer, we select the snare bus, right click, create, select arrange track is what allows us to preview it in our arrange window. Previously that was not there. But being that this is the channel that we're adding the inserts to, we do want to view that in the arrange window. And what we'll do is we will navigate to the top of our Logic session, enable our automation by clicking the automation button, and go to, in the case where you want to completely bypass a certain insert, you go to main, and then you have your insert numbers. In this case, my noise gate was insert number 4. And you can see here it says insert number 4 bypass. So that's the one we'll select. And I want to make sure that my noise gate in this part, let's see, let's just listen to this pass with the noise gate off. It's a real soft, intricate playing, nothing heavy at all. But when I enable the noise gate and we listen to this part, it's just not there. It's not. Basically, even that part just passed over our threshold. So it could be the case in some of your mixes that you don't want the noise gate active in certain parts. And the way that we automate this, at least in Logic, now my entire thing is bypassed. All the way down in this case is going to be activated. All the way up is going to be bypassed. And what I will do, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, is I will say, okay, this section here, I'm going to just left click to basically trigger the bypass until this section here. I'm going to left click as well. I want the insert number 4, which is our noise gate plugin, to be bypassed. And if you look over here, within our snare bus, you could tell that our automation has been switched to read, which means as the song plays, it's going to pay attention to this and trigger the noise gate to be turned off in just this section. So let's listen to the snare bus soloed, and I will play it from the heavier transient part. And notice how here on our insert channel, it will automatically turn it on and off as it plays through this section. Off. Notice in this section we're not getting a lot of bleed, so it's okay. And again, it's engaged now that we're back through the engaged section of the automation. So that's a way to, you can either entirely bypass the plugin via automation, or you can actually go in on your snare bus setting, go to your noise gate plugin. In Logic, you just go to noise gate, and then you would actually select the threshold option. And you could do the exact same thing, where right now our threshold is set at -21 dB. We would just go in here, click, and, to select this certain part, sorry, leave this at -21. And then we would just bring the threshold down so that our peaks, just as we did before, are picked up within this section of the song. So that's just another way to go about automating our noise gate plugin if it is cutting off any parts of the song. In most cases, it's, at least in my experience, it's better just to bypass the plugin, because if it's that soft of a performance, you're not going to have to worry too much about the bleed. So let's go ahead and make sure we're still monitoring the automation and it's red, being that it's bypassing that section. I will zoom back out here. Actually, let's make sure we're zoomed vertically, at least, to our snare tracks. And let's listen to it in perspective of the whole mix I will turn it off for, 4 bars or so, and then turn it back on. I'm actually going to, now when you have the automation engaged, it's not going to allow you to, if it's on read, it's not going to allow you to bypass it manually. But since this is a tutorial, I'm just going to turn off the read, and we will bypass it manually, listen, and engage it, and see what the difference is. So bypass, engaged, bypassed. Engaged. And bypass. Engaged. Bypass. Engaged. And just overall, I mean, it's going to get rid of the snare bleed, conservatively. It's not going to completely eliminate the signal, but it is going to bring it down enough to where we can hone in on the snare, get the sound that we want out of our close mics, and get rid of all the unnecessary instruments that were surrounding it when it was captured. So next time you're mixing your snare drum, add a noise gate, keep it conservative, set your parameters so that it's a natural sounding gate so that it's not clamping down, and implement this, guys. Do this and make better drum mixes. If you have any questions, guys, as always, leave them in the comments below. I will get back to you as soon as I can, and look forward to the next snare processing video when we will get into the way I go about adding reverb to the snare. And that's probably going to be the final part of our snare processing videos. So stay tuned for that, guys. We will see you soon. Thanks.